Today we are back with orthopedic tutor talking about the radial nerve compression neuropathy. For those of you who haven't read about the basics regarding compression neuropathy, be sure to check out my video regarding basics of compression neuropathy. I've covered all of these here right there. And now I'm going to talk about the radial nerve compression neuropathy. So basically there are four types of syndrome that comes out of the radial nerve compression neuropathy, and today I'm going to cover two of them, which is the proper radial nerve compression and also the posterior interosseous nerve branch compression neuropathy, or also known as the PIN syndrome. So heading to the first one, the proper radial nerve compression, this is actually a compression over at the radial nerve at a very proximal site. It is also known as a sardonymic palsy because usually intoxicated patient would pass out with their arm over the chair, and the chair would eventually push over and apply force over at the radial nerve at a very proximal site, and usually it is rarely compressed by the muscles themselves. But other causes of proper radial nerve palsy would be the trauma towards the humerus. Now, the diagnosis is very straightforward because you could find weakness of the proper radial nerve innervated muscles, which would include the triceps, the brachioradialis, and also the ECRL. The weakness of all pin innervated muscles will also be found, along with sensory deficits, which is covered by the superficial sensory branch of radial nerve. Remember that the proper radial nerve is a big, huge nerve. When it is disrupted over at those particular site, any function of this nerve and any muscles that it innervates, any areas that it covers for its sensory functions will all be disrupted because of its proximal site of involvement. Now, the additional examination such as EMG, and CT is also good to determine its severity and prognosis. While we know that this is actually a rare condition, so you would probably not find it during your daily clinical practice, but if you do, the initial management plan would always include non-operative treatment plan with observation for at least 3 months, because any injury when it is quite simple, not so severe, you will see evidence of improvements within the first 3 months. Now, operatively, you could always do surgical exploration if there is no recovery within the first 3 months. And next, we will move on to today's second topic, which is the posterior interosseous nerve syndrome. Like, if you still remember your basics anatomy lessons, then you should remember that this posterior interosseous nerve is actually a branch that comes out of the radial nerve, as is the anterior interosseous nerve, which comes out of the median nerve. Well, the basics is that this type of palsy is frequently found especially in certain populations, such as those in working with manually or those with bodybuilding profession. Well, the compressive site or the compressive neuropathy of the pin usually involves 5 sites, and these are all located over at the elbow region. Because why? During the radial nerve, when it goes through to the anterior elbow region, you could see here clearly depicted, there are 2 branches coming out, which is the superficial branch of radial nerve and also the posterior interosseous nerve. While the superficial radial branch of radial nerve provides sensory information from the skin, the posterior interosseous nerve, on the other hand, they innervate the motoric component of the radial nerve, but they also provide some sensoric information, and we'll go on to that later on. Now, the sites of which this particular nerve here, you could see this one, this is the PIN, and this could be compressed over here, caused by the anterior radiocapitellar joint tissue. You see here that this is the radial head, this is the capitulum of the humerus, and the fibrous tissue that forms all around the anterior aspect here could compress the PIN. Next would be the leash of Henry. This is called the leash of Henry. It is actually a vascular structure that this is a radial recurrent vessel. And then it could come, the compression could also be caused by the ECRBH. This is the ECRB muscle, extensor carpi radialis brevis. And this proximal edge here could also compress this one. The other thing would be the arcade of Frosch and also the supinator muscle proximal edge, especially here. Now, I will show you next is the depiction of the arcade of Frosch. I should have it right here, this one. So this structure here, the number 4, this one is called the arcade of Frosch, and it is actually the arcade of Frosch itself is the proximal edge of the superficial part of the supinator muscle. So this is the supinator muscle, and the proximal edge here, it forms a sort of like arcade, and it is named as arcade of Frosch. And the distal edge of the superficial head of the supinator muscle here, this is also another compression site for the radial nerve. For the PIN nerve. And once again, let's go through it. It could be compressed by the fibrous band. It could be compressed by this vascular structure, the vascular leash of Henry. It could be compressed by the edge of ECRB, which has been retracted in this image. It could be also compressed by two edge of the supinator muscle, which is the proximal edge, also known as arcade of Frosch, and the distal edge of the supinator muscle. Now, I've mentioned earlier that even though the PIN nerve, the posterior interosseous nerve, innervates all the extensor compartments, whether it is at the common extensor compartment or the deep extensor compartment, the PIN actually also conveys sensory input, which comes from the dorsal wrist capsule and also floor of the fourth extensor compartment. As you can see here, there is no cutaneous innervation for PIN, and that is why you cannot evaluate during physical exam. You cannot find any sensory changes on the skin because PIN does not convey any cutaneous information. Now, etiologic wise, it could be caused by microtrauma, trauma, space occupying lesion, or inflammation. These are the common things, but especially the inflammation may come from the radiocapitular joint because that is where the nerve is proximally located at. But it could also be caused by iatrogenic causes when you do a volar approach over at the forearm and you inadvertently retract the muscles along with the nerves, and you are not careful enough to identify the nerve. That could cause damage. While for diagnosis, generally for history taking, you will indeed find pain over at the forearm or wrist region, and the location generally depends on where the compression is. And if the compression location would be the arcade of Frosch, then generally you will find the pain to be situated over at distal to the lateral epicondyle. Other manifestations may include muscle weakness, which may involve the fingers, the wrist, the thumb, but indeed you will not find any sensory changes because once again there is no cutaneous innervation information that goes through it. Now, inspection wise, you may find atrophy of the extensor muscles, that is to be expected. For the motion itself, you will find weakness of any extension motion, which may be innervated by the which may involve the metacarpal joint or the wrist joint. And during wrist extension, you may find that the wrist deviates to the radial aspect. Now, this is an interesting thing because even though our posterior compartment over the arm, which innervates the wrist extensors, fingers extensors, they are mostly innervated by the PIN. There is one muscle here inside them, which is the ECRL, that is also known as the extensor carpi radialis longus muscle. That particular muscle is innervated by radial nerve. And what I mean by radial nerve here is that the nerve itself, that at the point where it has not branched out to form PIN, so we call it the radial nerve. So if I take this picture here, okay, now the PIN here will give a branch off to the ECRB, but proximally over at the radial nerve here, there will be a branch that goes toward the ECRL, and through this intact innervation, the wrist can still extend, but it will deviate to the radial side. Why? Because there is absent function of the ECU, with the extensor carpi ulnaris. If we have an intact function of both the radialis, the EC radialis and EC ulnaris, then the wrist will extend in a proper manner. But because this ECU can be considered as non-existent because of the pin neuropathy, then the ECRL will pull the wrist towards the radial side during wrist extension. Now, this is a very important finding that you should confirm during your physical exam in PIN neuropathy. Now, for the provocative test, you could do several things, such as resisted supination, because you know that the muscle itself, the nerve itself, the PIN, is embedded within these supinator muscle, and there is the proximal and also the distal edge that compresses on the PIN. So naturally, to cause or to trigger the symptoms, you would do a resisted supination. Next would be the normal tenodesis. Now, because the patient comes to us with the inability to move their upper limb, their wrist could not extend, their fingers could not extend, sometimes one would suspect them to have spontaneous tendon rupture, and these are commonly found in patients with rheumatoid arthritis over at the hand region, where the erosion of the tendon occur due to the various inflammatory tissue of the rheumatoid arthritis that builds up around the joint. So in conditions of PIN neuropathy, you will find a normal tenodesis. You could do it right now with your hand. Try flexing your wrist and relaxing your fingers. While you do this, you can observe that most of your fingers will move from an initial slightly flexed position to a extended position, and otherwise, when you move the wrist from flexion to extension, you can find that your fingers move from a slightly extended position to a slightly flexed position. When all of these fingers move as one in a very smooth cascade, then we say that there is a normal tenodesis, which means that the tendon is intact and the muscle is not properly innervated. So that differentiates it from the rheumatoid arthritis. Now, additional examination can always include AMG and NCV, but MRI is sometimes needed to evaluate for any soft tissue mass. Now, for the posterior interosseous nerve syndrome, compression neuropathy, always do non-operative management first, and it must include rest, activity modification, stretching, splinting NSAIDs, and also injection. Now, there are common physiotherapy exercises which includes improving the muscle, the nerve gliding. We call it the nerve gliding exercises. There are certain specific movements that your physiotherapist can teach you to help you understand how to glide your nerves, not muscle but nerve, which includes the radial ulnar and also the median nerve. And these gliding exercises are actually good for conditions such as for compression neuropathy, because it helps the nerve to move around smoothly and not stuck in one position. Now for the modalities, you could also do splinting, NSAIDs, or injections. Especially to the point of local tenderness. When you find it to be isolated to lateral epicondyle, distal to it, you could do a single injection 3 to 4 centimeter distal to the lateral epicondyle. Now for the operative treatment, generally for the surgical decompression, you need to do it only in patient population where non-operative treatment has failed, the symptom persists for more than 3 months, and especially if you find a mass, because definitely the mass will not generally be gone by itself. You need to remove them, and there are several approaches, but generally you need to release all the sites of compression. Now included in it is that you need to release the radial tunnel. We'll get to this more on the next video regarding the second part of the radial nerve compression neuropathy. There is one condition we call them as the radial tunnel syndrome. Now the last thing about PIN syndrome is that you need to be aware of what may happen afterwards. The complications include chronic pain, but also in cases where the PIN is not recognized and treated well, you could find even muscle fibrosis in all the PIN innervated muscles, because these muscles underwent atrophy when not being used, and fibrous changes will be found. And in this condition, definitely no surgical means can drastically change the outcome, because the muscle themselves is no longer there. Now that will be all for today's discussion regarding the proper radial nerve palsy and also the posterior interosseous nerve. Be sure to check out the next part of this video for more information regarding the radial tunnel syndrome and also the Waardenburg syndrome. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Orthopedic Tutor channel.